It's time for a weekend respite from the politics and all the other serious news that you catch on the Mojo Story platform. I'm Barkha Dutt, and in a moment from now, we'll be talking to Taapsee Pannu and Tahir Raj Bhasin. They have an experimental story out this weekend, Loot Lapeta, that revisits the cult classic Run Lola Run. Although the creators and the actors are underlining that this is not a remake of the old classic and an experimental fun format for contemporary India, a new kind of filmmaking. It is, of course, a work of art that will be benchmarked against its earlier reference, Run Lola Run. But Taapsee Pannu has been on record describing it as akin to a college experimental film. What did she mean exactly by that? Taapsee, of course, is having the time of her life essaying frontal roles in one movie after the other. And it's my great pleasure, because she's been a regular on our property, We the Women, on this platform year after year. So it's great to see her again. Tahir, it's great to have you on our platform for the very first time. And congratulations on all the different things you've been doing. So great to see you guys. And God knows, I think our audience needs a break from the serious stuff that I inflict on them day after day. So let me start by asking you, Taapsee, what do you meant by saying ये तो college की जैसे experimental film students बनाते थे, ये कुछ वैसे ही है? What did you mean by that?
I don't know actually where did I said it. Now that you're reminding me, it must have been the context that where you make something because it is your vision and your style of storytelling without bothering about कि ये box office returns कितने होंगे उसके. When you're not keeping that जनता perspective in mind, thinking कि कुछ ऐसा formula एक डाल देते हैं ताकि कुछ safety net हो जाए. Without any safety net, you just go all in with your instincts and gut feeling. It was like that when I said yes to this film, because I felt if I am an audience, I connect to it. I have an instinctive feeling of saying yes to it, even though it has nothing close to the formula that's that usually we have in films here. And I'm sure so did Tahir, so did Akash, so did Atul and Tanuj and Sony for getting into it, because we all somewhere instinctively jumped into it without bothering about that formula.
And you're at the point in your career, Taapsee, where it should be easy for you to take risks. But even so, did you feel a bit of a knot in your tummy, wondering whether the audiences are ready for that kind of risk that you're talking about that isn't tied to the box office?
No, actually, my tummy said take the risk. My mind was telling me that, my mind was saying that maybe it's not a safe decision to take. But then I always say I've made a career out of risky decisions. So why not? Let's go ahead with one more. It was a very gut instinct to say yes to this film.
Well, that's why we love you, because you do take risks, and I think more and more women in particular should take risks. Now, Tahir, I was reading somewhere that you guys, because it is strange COVID times that we live in, and some of us have been out there reporting the story, but most people have been locked in, that the first time you actually met your co-star Taapsee was on Zoom. Was that weird?
It was incredibly weird. The first time Taapsee and I went to meet was, I think, in the second week of March of 2020, and we all know how that month went for everyone. And the first time we ended up meeting was on a Zoom chat. So much of give and take in a creative process, like making a film, involves meeting different teams and face-to-face meetings, and a lot of that was lost in translation, and we had to sort of keep up with technology and COVID, whatever we had at hand. Having said that, when we all came out of 3 months of lockdown, having spent that time in apartments in Bombay and got out of there with this renewed sense of gratitude for what we love to do, and got to the sets, which was based in Goa, it was just this incredible feeling to go out there and shoot Loot Lapeta.
Like, a lot of people say that people have forgotten like basic human skills, how to meet each other. Do you hug? Do you shake hands? Is it like, is virtual real? So when you came together face to face, and I just want to ask both of you, I'll start with you, Tahir, like, was it different from other sets because it had come out of this kind of weird virtual reality?
It definitely was.
Yeah.
A set is a very social place. It's where after a take, you'll go and hang out with your co-star. In lunch breaks, you'll sit around with the crew and get lunch, especially when you're shooting in a place like Goa. But there were all these safety mandates in place. Half of our crew was in PPE kits. And there was a little bit of distance. I think the actors had a little bit of respite because we are the only ones without masks in front of camera. And yes, a little bit of those human skills had been lost. You can't hug, you can't even shake hands anymore. I know we were fist bumping, but when you had to go from Zoom calls and fist bumps to making out on camera and having romantic chemistry. I think that's where the
Yeah.
real acting challenge was. So when you watch the film Barkha, do let us know if you feel we managed that
I will,
well.
I will do that. But Taapsee, it's an interesting new world, right? It's what Aldous Huxley called the brave new world for a different time. And I'm very struck by what Tahir is saying, that you have to be really intimate with each other. But unlike conventional sort of, shooting experiences, you don't have that warm up time at all face to face. Was it weird for you as well?
Actually, true. Because we didn't end up spending a lot of time physically, next to each other, which in ideal world, in the normal world, we would have, right? With the kind of film this is, because the film starts off telling the fact that that most of the film is like we are in a relationship, and and everything goes in the flashback where whatever little bit of how they fell in love was shown. So we had to be in really good space with each other, and then we didn't really get that much of time to spend with each other, not even before the film, not during the film, as much as the shooting time, because everyone was like just bothered about, okay, like just like safely get back and then safely come, keep getting tested every few days. And we had a very paranoid producer, Tanuj Garg, who was like just freaking out with even the idea. He, like, I remember once in Goa, he was like, no, you can't eat, I don't think you should be eating seafood. And he said, I said, I'm in Goa, why will I not eat seafood? He's like, God forbid if something wrong is there in that seafood and you fall sick. He went crazy to that level, monitoring what I'm going to eat also. So yeah, so that
Yeah.
that was a level of paranoia that was there around in everyone, because specifically because we were in between the first and the second lockdown when we shot the film.
Yeah. These have been weird times, and they're going to change us in ways that I think we haven't even fully understood yet. Now, Tapsi, I mean, as I was saying in the introduction, like you've been a favorite on this platform, and we've been following you ever since you played Revolver Dadi, which of course was called Sand Ki Aankh, the real life story of these sort of geriatric dadis in a Haryana village who learned how to pick up a gun in their 60s. Now, my question to you is, how did it come to be? And I think it's great that you are constantly essaying real life women, whether it's Mithali Raj, which is your upcoming film, whether it's Sandki Ank, whether it's Rashmi Rocket. There's a kind of inspirational female story. And even in Loot Lapeta, which is very meta and not about a real life person, you're the woman saving the guy. Coming to the rescue of Tahir, who's your boyfriend in the movie.
I think I didn't have an option to begin with. I'll be honest with saying that I was not offered or given a chance to star in films where I'll be saved. Nobody wanted to save me, so I had to save myself. That actually is true. So I had no other option. Since the time I essayed Baby, that 7 minutes role in Baby, to going on with Pink, it was a snowball effect. Just amplified these kind of roles coming to me, where I am that strong woman protagonist who is going to save the day for either herself or someone in her life, or just come out of some kind of shackles or stereotypes. All this kind of stuff just kept coming to me in bulk. And now it was only about filtering and choosing what I would relate to and what I feel will work for the audience and what will not. So even till date, I have to keep clarifying. It's not like I have forcefully taken a stand that I will not do a film where I am not the central protagonist. I don't mind that. But I need to have a voice of my own in the film. It can't, I need to have the agency of choice and power in the film. I can't be just there to serve the purpose of serving the protagonist in the film. So that has been the only requirement. Other than that, it's just been the kind of roles that I've been doing that have been amplifying this kind of stuff, especially where physicality is concerned. When it comes to portraying someone who will be, pushing the envelope physically, I don't
Yeah.
know why I just end up getting all these roles. I even now I have to say no specifically to films with sports background, because, or even action after Naam Shabana, I had to stop it for some time because it kept on coming to me in bulk. So I was like, okay, let me just give action a break after Naam Shabana, and now I'm giving sports a break after
Yeah.
Shabash Mitu. So because there's certain kind
Yeah.
of only men do these kind of parts factor attached to this kind of role, and not many women have experimented in the roles which require physicality. Not many have done, a few have. So when it
Yeah.
comes to someone who's readily taking it up, I guess it's just like becomes a snowball effect of more and more coming my way.
No, I was just going to say that I think there've been like some jokes about how you're actually running in all of your movies, including in Loot Lapeta. Uh, uh, Tahir, it's a similar question for you. You know, we spend a lot of time discussing when the stereotypical representation for women will end on screen, but actually that question is just as valid for men. You know, the idea of the conventional hero, the idea of the conventional sort of male presence. You've got an opportunity to sort of also play that out in a more complex way, whether it was in 83 or now in Loot Lupeta. If the idea of the heroine has changed, so has the idea of the hero. Has it or has it not really?
It absolutely has, Barkha, and I feel stories cater to the audience, and the audience palette and the audience, Indian audience's maturity has changed drastically. Loop Lapeta, which is the adaptation of Run Lola Run, sort of stands for that gender role being reversed, and this is something that Germany did in the late 90s, and I feel like it's about time that we caught up. Much like Taapsee, I have made a career out of choosing parts that are slightly out of the box and are slightly risky. A lot of the stuff I've done before, whether it was in the national award-winning Chichore or 83, have been these alpha male sort of either the college stud or the cricketer. So it was a big challenge for me to play Satya in Loop Lapeta because it's just incredibly refreshing that here you are with gender roles reversed and the choice is with the woman. And Taapsee, I'm really sorry to hear that no one wanted to save you in the beginning. If a sequel for Loop Lapeta is ever made, you can sign me up. I will run and save you. Just give me a call.
But I want to push you further on that before I get whether Taapsee needs to be saved or not. The gender reversal is what is striking, right? The conventional storytelling, Tahir, would be that the boy saves the girl. There's the Prince Charming who comes on the horse. There's the princess who gets saved by her Prince Charming. There's the Cinderella who meets a guy. It's always the guy who's the savior. And this gender reversal is an intriguing thing for Indian audiences. I'm trying to think if there's another movie that I've seen it in, and I haven't. So Loop Lapeta is really, in a sense, breaking new ground with that. Did you have to get over any ego hassles, Tahir, personally, with being the guy who gets saved?
Not at all. There was something very endearing and very vulnerable. And I feel if I was to draw comparisons to the films that I grew up on from the 90s, if I was to look at a classic commercial film like Rangila, for example, where there was Amir Khan, or Kabhi Haan Kabhi Na, where there was Shah Rukh Khan, I mean, they weren't explored to this extent, but there was the idea of the flawed hero, of the man who wasn't perfect, who didn't have all the smooth lines, and who wasn't necessarily riding in on the white horse with all the correct things to say to the girl. And I really enjoy that aspect of humanness, to be honest. And what's really beautiful about the way the romance has been explored between Satya and Savi in Loop Lapeta is, in conventional terms, it's not just a good-looking girl and a good-looking guy and their eyes lock across the corridor and there's slow motion music and now they're in love. There's actually fights that happen. There's very human moments of what do we do? We're now out of money. Or, what would you do if I got into trouble? There's a moment in the film when I ask her. And so there are all these very real issues of being locked in a room, sign of the times, of talking about what it is to be in a relationship, to be in love, to be romantic, and would you do for me what I would be willing to do for you, is a great sort of question in each one of these loops in the film.
Very interesting. And Taapsee, you said, I think, somewhere that when you started your career and you started with cinema in the South, you thought you had maybe a few years, 5 to 7 years, and after 10 years you'd be doing something else. And because that's the shelf life that was offered to women. How much has changed? I mean, it's great to have Loop Lapeta with Tahir and you being this sort of new mindset folks who are ready to reverse the power differential. But how much has really changed for women? Because when I look at things, well, there's you guys, but there's still sort of 50-something heroes romancing girls, in their 20s. And I don't know that the reverse could ever happen.
So I'll tell you, just picking up from where Tahir left the previous question, when you asked him about this whole insecurity, did creep in, the ego crept in or no? I mean, kudos to him and a few handful, a very few handful of actors who, and I always say, I've said this before, it doesn't take only a secure actor. It doesn't only take a secure actor. It takes a secure man to step into a film where you are, you know, it's going to be the girl saving the man, not the
Yeah.
usual conventional opposite. So it's, and do a lot of these films where so to say, in the metaphorical way, the woman wears the pants, okay. And I
Yeah.
have actually heard and seen the actors in our industry in their 20s or 30s not okay to be romancing the girl in the 20s or the 30s, because they feel at this stage of my career, I've been advised I should not do a film where where my screen presence is relatively lesser, or where I don't have anything heroic to do
Mhm.
in those terms. There've been actors who've actually said those lines. I'm not making it up.
Wow.
So
So there is that level
so
of male ego that comes in the way.
there is 100%. There is, but we still have handful of actors like Tahir who have the sensibility to understand that this role can showcase a side of his that nobody else has seen before, because he's always played an alpha before. So it takes, an actor's sensibility to pick up a role where you're gonna show something diametrically opposite, which might attract newer audience towards you, and show directors what more can you do than your conventional alpha roles. So it takes a little more of sense than ego to say yes to such kind of films. And if you ask me about things being changed, yeah, well, you can't deny that statistically there are more number of female-driven films getting made today in mainstream. So yes,
Yeah.
certain things have changed. We can't deny that. But again, we are far away from equality. I still stand by my statement when I say that if the same actor probably who would have debuted at the same time as me hasn't probably given as many hits as me today commands a salary double than me, as actually my whole film's budget sometimes is equivalent to one actor's salary. That's the kind of difference that we still have, and there's a long way to go before we bridge this gap. But the girls of the current times, the girls leading the films right now, don't seem to be getting perturbed by it, because we know if we give up right now, we probably might not see a tomorrow where the things will be equal. So for that sake, we are trying to make sure we keep pushing ourselves. But yes, we are far away from anything called equality.
I'm shocked to actually hear, Tapsi, that even now you're saying that a big actor's sort of fee uh, would be more than the budget of an entire film where you're the central protagonist. There's so many of you who have raised your voices against this. Why do you think it still hasn't changed?
It's a vicious circle, Barkha. It's got a not only industry is a part of that circle, our audience are equally responsible as well. When you have a male protagonist film releasing, we have advanced bookings, we have crazy numbers coming in for the weekend, which is purely star driven, because they really want to see that actor's movie regardless of however it is. That's how the weekend numbers come in. The weekday decides how good the film is, and it carries on or no. Now, in a woman's case, when there's a female protagonist, our weekend numbers are extremely sad in comparison, because everyone is waiting for the word of mouth, that let us hear from 10 different people at least that it's worth a watch, only then we're going to spend time and money. But they don't think all that when they're walking into a male protagonist film. So
Yeah.
hence the difference. So this needs to be changed, not just from the industry perspective, it needs to change from an audience perspective also.
Absolutely. I mean, so many of these battles are structural battles. So kudos, yes, Tahir, to you for I mean, when Taapsee says there are male actors who would have absolutely refused this, that you had the largeness and the comfort in your own skin to do this. Good for you. In the end, I have to ask both of you about being essentially relatively outsiders to this industry. There's been a lot of debate around nepotism, what it's like for outsiders to make it big. Tahir, I'll start with you. I know Taapsee has spoken about this, and I'll give her the last word on it. But you could have taken a different path. You were studying in Melbourne. I don't know if it was always your dream to be an actor, and then you arrive in this industry where there are big sort of cinema houses that are centered around single families. How tough has it been for you?
It always was a dream in the sense films were a large part of me growing up. They were sort of the humanness that I was talking about in a previous answer. They sort of teach you so much about life. And I'm not talking only about Indian film, I'm talking about world cinema, all kinds of the movies. And I discovered the passion while I was studying at Delhi University and was a part of a lot of the theatre groups around there. And I realized that that's what I wanted to do. And what I went to Melbourne to do was study more about the subject, about film writing, film criticism, and acting. And then when I finally got to Bombay, I don't think an education ever goes waste. It always helps to have to be in a position to have that dialogue. I would not be telling the truth if I said that it was easy, because if it was easy, everyone would be doing it. It's incredibly competitive, and it is incredibly challenging. When it comes to nepotism, the analogy that I like to give is it's like if you're like skydiving, right? You're jumping out of a plane. Someone who comes from a massive family backing has a parachute and a backup parachute. You're jumping out of the plane without anything on your back. You're just hoping someone catches you while you're in free fall. And I think Taapsee and I have been very lucky that the right people have sort of lent out their hand. And for me, that was YRF with a film called Mardani. And thereafter you're on your own, and hopefully you land on your feet.
Yeah, the skydiving analogy is an interesting one. Taapsee, your production house, if I'm not wrong, is also called Outsiders. Am I right?
Yeah. Yes. It is.
I love it.
And it is because I
messaged her the day I heard that announcement to say, congratulations, you've made it. Like, this is it. Like when you can call your production house that.
that.
Yeah, exactly. Taapsee, go ahead. Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I've after much thought, and this happened, the name came in my head last 2 years while this whole pandemic time was happening. The idea was there before, we were slowly working on it, but the name literally came during the pandemic because I got perturbed with the this whole looking down upon the word outsiders. It started making us feel like perpetual victims of some a kind of assault that's happening here. Okay, and I don't really look at it like that, being an outsider. I've always seen the glass half full. I've always known the problems that I will face being an outsider and not from the industry. Fully aware, I decided to be in this industry to chart a way through regardless. I knew the battle is going to be longer, harder. Nobody forced me into this profession. I chose it, and I was ready to fight that longer, harder battle, which I still am. Nepotism affected me differently when I began. It affected me differently when I was, choosing films, or becoming a better actor, or becoming a more bankable actor. And today it affects me in a different way, but it does it, and I really don't know if and when it will leave me, but I don't see it as a problem, because
How does it affect you now? How does it affect you now when you're a big star? You're the center of your own movies.
It still affects me in a way that there are a lot of times that I would want to do a certain subject or work with a certain director. But when I reach out, which I've always done, even when I was a nobody, I used to reach out and ask, I would want to work with you, because I knew nobody else will make that call for me. So when I do, I mean, I get a very warm, sweet response, but it always ends up like, but I am already developing this or something with this actor who's, who has a better access. So that access point, I still have a problem with the access, because
even now.
Yeah. So that's why if you see my filmography, it's made out of working multiple times with the same directors, because that's my access. I'm not very good with forcing myself into social groups with agenda. So I've never really socialized with people thinking that I'm going to get access through them. I've always let my work talk, hoping that when I message them next time or call them that I would really want to work with you, I'll get a positive response, which hasn't happened till now. They're very sweet and nice and kind to me. But it's not like I have reached out for something and then, very positive response has come in, because they've been taken or they've been accessed prior to the time I could access them, and that accessibility is the problem right now for me.
So you're saying the film industry still has a kind of inside clubby culture that if you're outsiders, you can't break that easily.
You can't break that easy, but it'll never be easy, because the thing is, accessibility will always be a problem. You'll always be one step behind in the accessibility in comparison to people who've grown up here and who are on your WhatsApp list, obviously you're going to be, behind in that queue. So that is the problem right now. Not really like I've been replaced by someone or of that stage. Thankfully, I have passed a little bit, but this one is the new one for me.
Well, as they say, it basically means you've got to run twice as hard to get to the same place, is probably the best way to describe nepotism. So it's a good thing that you're always running in all of your recent movies, Taapsee. But more seriously, guys, thank you. It's been a fun chat and a break for me as well from all the sort of grim, depressing news that one normally chronicles. Tahir and Taapsee, good luck. Loop Lapeta is releasing this weekend. Catch it. It's experimental. It sounds like a lot of fun. And I'm looking forward to taking a couple of hours off from work and having a look myself. Thanks, guys. Take care. Good luck. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
It's great to see you here. Thank you for watching our work. If you haven't subscribed yet, don't forget to click the bell icon and subscribe to Mojo Story and support independent, robust journalism.